Hi, I'm Dee Dee Carney, and welcome to Meet the Candidates. Today, we're interviewing Ms. KandieSmith from District 1. How are you?
I'm doing great, and you?
I'm good. Well, first question, why in the world would you continue to run and seek a third term for City Council?
Well, I've been asked that question more often than not. I have a strong passion for the people, and I think anyone who knows me, they know that's just how I am. I really want everyone to do well, and I would love to see the city grow and prosper as a whole. And I feel like that I can still be that common voice. I feel like I can still be that accessible person. I still feel like I can be that rational person, listen to the citizens, make sure gathering all of the information and making decisions that affect the entire city. So with that, I said, well, let me go ahead and go one more term. And plus, I was approached many times with different citizens, and they asked me, we like what you're doing to this point, and we would like to encourage you to continue to run. And so after much prayer, I conceded and continued to run for a third term.
Okay. You do things a little differently. I noticed your blog on riding the city bus. I don't know that any other city council folks have ever done that before. Have they?
Well, I'm not sure about what other people have done, but I know that when citizens come to you with concerns, it's important you can hear exactly what they're saying, but when you experience it, it's completely different. Right. So the only way for me to really experience it is to put feet on the ground, put boots on the ground. And so that's what I did, and got on the bus and happened to be riding it through a thunderstorm. So of course I got wet, but I got a chance to see what people experience when they have to go to work, when they have to deal with the weather and we don't have shelters, when they have to transfer just in the open elements downtown, when the bus, you have to take the entire hour route to get back to a point before you transfer. You can't get off going either south or north to go east or west. So I wanted to experience those things personally. So once we begin to deal with it and look at how can we be more effective as a city with our transportation, I can speak more from experience and experiencing it firsthand.
Right, very good. So what contributions do you think you've made since you've been on the city council?
Well, first of all, I think, again, going back to being accessible, I've had many people to call me. They were not in my district at all. It does not matter, because as a council member, we represent the city of Greenville as a whole. So I've been very accessible. I've made sure that I worked hard to look at developing things that we need in different areas. One thing I'm very proud of is a dream park. We made sure that was funded and made sure that was built, and now it's accessible to everybody in the community and becoming one of our most widely used parks. I was very big on the rollout carts. It was a lot of citizens calling me because they were not able to afford a rollout cart because of the price, and they were still having to pay a backyard fee. And so I worked with Public Works Director to try to find out what can we do to accommodate some of those citizens, and then we found a more affordable plan so they could purchase a rollout cart and then start paying the front yard fee and no longer having to pay that excessive high fee. So that's been a good thing. I've had many people to call me regarding issues with GUC. How can they work on not getting their utilities turned off, but what can they do to get on a better schedule, maybe to change their times. I've worked with citizens on dealing with issues like that. I've worked a lot with the police department. We have a new electric motorcycle that was just purchased. One of the things I ran across in Boston at the National League of Cities Conference and felt like that could be something to help promote safety in our community, because they have been using those on the greenways. And it's a proactive approach. Instead of waiting till we have something negative to happen, let's be proactive. And so that's what we've been doing with that. And of course I promote that community policing, because I think that sometimes when we look at, well, we have to have the police to solve all the problems, it's really us working together as a community that solves the problems. Another thing is, we've had many concerns north of the river when it comes to the airport, and I facilitated the discussions between the residents north of the river and the airport. That discussion, that just feedback back and forth, has been non-existent for about 30 years. So I facilitated that, and now the residents and the airport manager and the airport authority have been working together to try to remedy some of the issues and answer some of the questions that's been going on. And then I've been very open to a lot of the citizens who live in that area who are affected by the train idling all night. And it started before I got on the council with the rail yard being built, but being able to facilitate sharing information, how long it would take, when the train's going to be moved, sharing as much information as possible with the citizens, keeping them informed of when the completion date was. I've done a lot of that. And I've just done anything that I could to be accessible. I've worked to promote dealing with the youth and giving them more activities. And one program that we've started this summer was late night basketball. I was pushing for that ever since I've been on the council, to give them something. I was tired of seeing ages 17 to 24 on the front page of Daily Reflector every day. Well, I've been told since I was a youth, idle mind is a devil's workshop. So you have to provide something. And if I could just find one element, looking at park and recs, we have things for people maybe up to 17 or 18, but what do we do from there? And so we started the late night basketball for the first time for the summer, and it has been extended a little bit, and now it's been included, including the youth from 13 to 17 on Friday nights. We had both nights for 17 to 24, but we've changed that. And the outcome has been wonderful, especially during the summer. We also had the opportunity to have the chief of police to come and speak, and also Ernest Lee from Pitt Community College to come and speak. So I think that that's been a very big success. And I just do what I can, not only to deal with talking to the adults, but also talking with the youth, being accessible to them. So I'm in a lot of the schools on a weekly basis, and I have those open conversations.
Great. You mentioned safety. I know in previous years, one of your platforms was Bright and Safe. What is your platform this year, and how did the Bright and Safe, how's that working out for you?
Well, I'm still looking at the number one issue is making sure that we increase safety and decrease crime. That's the number one issue. And part of that takes that partnership. So I'm continuing to partner with the community, making sure we have good community policing. And I'm also working with the chief on the Bright and Safe campaign. We've been working with that for years, and Chief Aiden has now stated that this is something that can be funded. So we were looking at finding some volunteer electricians and other people who might be able to assist, so we can start the project of putting the first light up. And I would like to start with the elderly, making sure they have their areas to be well lit, because they might not be able to see as well as some other people. And we know that when there's that extra darkness, people like to do things in that area. So we're trying to still work on that. So I'm continuing to work to make sure that we do everything that we can. Any of the resources that's needed from the police department, if they present those to us as a council, then I support that 100%. And I don't look at it according to crime only happening in one area, because if it happens in one area, it affects everybody in all areas of the city. So I'm definitely continuing to push that. The second thing I'm looking at is economic development and supporting local businesses. It ties hand in hand. If we do not have jobs, then a lot of times that spills over into crime. People do things because they feel like they have to find a way to bring food into their home. They have to find a way to be able to pay for their rent. They have to have their basic needs met. Well, I'm encouraging that economic development. I think we need to bring businesses in here with livable wages, and not just bringing a business to come in, but with livable wages. But I think it's also important to make sure that we are supporting our local business owners, because those small businesses are who really creates the jobs, and they're invested in our own community. We can have a big company to come in, but we're not sure when they may leave, because they may not be as vested as a local business person. So we've just promoted the buy local preference as far as the city, to try to promote more of that. So I'm big on that, and I think we need to continue to help with that growth. I have been on the economic development team, and we've developed some economic development zones. So if people are building businesses in those areas, that they get an incentive, because we need to make sure we're encouraging these people, because they're taking chances. And the third one is looking at our infrastructure, as far as our streets, as far as our transportation. We were on a 75-year cycle, and I'm pretty sure that everyone is aware of that. If we wait 75 years to do anything to our roads, we're going to have to spend so much money, it's ridiculous. Not only that, we're going to be tearing up cars left and right. Why would you want to bring a business in if you don't have the appropriate infrastructure to support people going back and forth to work, or me transporting goods in and out of your city. And I also look at our transportation. We all know that with our bus system, it runs on every hour. And so to transfer every hour, it's very time consuming, and it hinders a lot of people because we talk about a bikeable, walkable community. There's no way we can have a bikeable, walkable community if we do not support our public transportation. So we're working on decreasing that time to every half hour, and then putting in some other transfer routes instead of just at Reed Street, so that if I'm going north or south and I need to transfer and go east or west, that can be possible when you have shorter route times. So those are some of the things that I am promoting and looking for. And when you look at that, it deals not only with the adults, but it deals with the youth, and it deals with the elderly population as well, because it deals with everybody. So I'm trying to take a more holistic approach. So those are the things that I'm pushing at this point.
Okay. And of course, a biggie, I think, big overarching theme of this particular city council currently is sort of lack of civility and a lot of disagreement. What do you think your role is in improving the divisiveness of the current council, or any council?
Well, I think my role is to make sure that I maintain being a calm person, being rational, thinking through situations, not jumping to the first conclusion, making sure that I remain open to listen to feedback from people, and that's what I've done. I do not spend a lot of time going back and forth and debating with my peers, because we're not supposed to be debating with each other. Our job is to ask questions of the city staff for clarification, and then to share our point of view of why we're making a decision. So those are the things that I do. If someone does not make a point that I think needs to be made, then at that time I'll make that point. But if that point has been made, I don't spend time repeating that and refuting someone's belief. But then I also look at the city as a whole. I think sometimes when you look at the discord and where it comes from, everybody is really pumped on serving their district. That's what we should do. We should all serve our district. But in order to serve our district, we must serve the city. There's no one vote that passes anything. We have to work as a whole. It takes 4 votes. So you have to have the majority of the council in order to get anything passed. So that means we need to collaborate with each other. Not only that, we need to prioritize. There may be something that I would really love to push in my district and say, let's just do it. But if there's an emergency that happens and we need to prioritize, and that one thing in my district, if I decide I'm just going to stand firm on that and I don't care about that emergency, that's not representing the city as a whole. I think we could do a better job at that, and I think we could do a better job of listening to each other. And sometimes we have to agree to disagree.
Correct. You hear that a lot in meetings, you know. Transparency and fiscal prudence has been repeated also as a common theme. What do you do to try to convey that?
Well, number one, I continue to be open to talk to any citizen about any decision I make, because there's no need to hide anything. I often tell people, you're my boss as a citizen. If people tell you differently, something's wrong. You're my boss, I work for you. So if there's information that you want and you contact me, then I pass that along so I can get that information and I share that with you. So there's been nothing that I've tried to hide when it comes to anything, because it should be public knowledge. There may be times when we're encouraged not to share information until certain things happen. Then I do that. I follow that, because I don't want to deter a deal that could possibly be a benefit to the city. I think it's key that we encourage people, we bring as many people in to help look at what happens in the city, because a lot of decisions are made even before it comes to the council. And that's why I've been encouraging people to participate on the committees, to participate on the boards, so they can get things firsthand. Because I've had people say, well, I didn't know this was happening. And then that's when I'll give my pitch of serving on one of the committees. Please put in your talent bank form, because it starts there. It's a ground root effort. It's a grassroots effort. We can start with you. That information comes through you, and then you guys pass your suggestions on to us, and you're talking to the citizens, and we're talking to the citizens. We're getting as much feedback as possible. So I'm being as transparent as possible to make sure that any and everybody who wants to know any information, and I've had people who don't live in the city ask for information. Well, if you work in the city and it still affects you, I think you should get that information.
What would you say helped prepare you for your role in the city council? Were there city boards that you were a part of, or?
Well, I was on the neighborhood advisory board. That was the first board as a part of the city that I was a part of. And with the neighborhood advisory board, it represents the entire city. And we would look at issues that would affect neighborhoods, and then we give those suggestions to city council. And then city council from there would take our suggestions into consideration, whether they would vote in favor of what we suggested, or if they opposed what we were suggesting and voted with something different. We wanted to at least make sure we provided information to them. So that was the major city board that I was on. But I've volunteered a lot within the city, being a part of Delta Sigma Theta and part of our social action. I was a social action chair for the last 2 years, and now I'm on our regional team with the national Delta Sigma Theta's national office on our regional team. And so I continue to promote issues that deal with our community, bettering our community as a whole. I do that on a constant basis. I partner whenever I can with other organizations like the Get Out to Vote Coalition to make sure that we are sharing information to all of the citizens regarding how to vote, when to vote, making sure you know your rights, making sure you have information on all candidates. Because I think what makes someone a good voter is an informed voter. Not just saying vote for me, but look at who your candidates are. Because this is a democracy and everybody has a choice.
Okay, good. And what do you hope to accomplish in the next 2 years?
Well, there's a million things I hope to accomplish in the next 2 years, but we all know city government and how slow it moves. But some of the things I really want to make sure that I continue to promote is when we look at, like I said, crime and safety. It's very disappointing when I receive a call and saying the first murder of the year happened in your district. That's very disappointing. So trying to continue to partner, to find ways, what can we do to decrease this from happening? We're not saying that we're going to be a city to have no violence whatsoever. That would be ideal. That would be perfect if we could get that, but we have to continue to find ways. So I think that sometimes we have to start looking at taking a top-down approach, because if you see a lot of the crime that's happening, it's from that 17 to 24, maybe 28-year-old age range. And so I start looking at the youth in school and how they are influenced. So I'm trying to partner with many people to come together to look at what can we do as far as parenting, to provide parenting programs. And there's a program called Triple P, and currently right now the health department is something they're promoting, so I'm trying to not let us be so divided and have 10 different organizations try to look at 10 different ways of supporting a program, and look at all 10 of us coming together to support one that's already funded. They already have trainers for it. All they need now are the parents to attend. And we have to start that top-down approach, because when we work with training parents and teaching parents better ways of parenting, and it doesn't mean that you have to have a certain amount of money before you go into the program, because parenting is very tough. It's very different for the youth now. They're faced with things that we were not faced with, that we never even thought of growing up. So being able to take some of these classes would be awesome. They're like a month and a half at the most. They feed the participants in the program, and they provide this information, and then they follow up to provide future information. So I'm trying to partner with them, with DSS, with the DA's office, with the police department, with ECU, with the Intergenerational Center, with the city. So I'm trying to partner with many people together to see what we can do to take that top-down approach. Because if we start with the parents, they provide information to their kids. That flows over into the schools, and also with the teachers supporting that. That flows over into the community with what we're providing as a city. And then that's just a community as a whole coming together. So I would like to continue to work on that. It does take a lot of work. I'm just in the beginning stages of that. I'm also working with the chief and beginning to work with some attorneys and looking at expungement. What can we do for those young people who have had a situation? Maybe they were in the wrong place. Maybe they made a bad decision. We were all young. Things happen. But getting records expunged so they wouldn't have that to hold them back, and then they can get a job with livable wages, and then be productive citizens. So I'm trying to work on that, not only with our youth, but looking at our homeless shelter, because we have a lot of people who don't know that we have these as options, and they're trying to do better. And they were once in a better place, but maybe not now. So trying to partner with people to provide information, resources that can move our citizens forward, and then find better ways of us as a city sharing information, because I think there's many resources out that I've heard people on numerous occasions say, I did not know that. Like our energy program with GUC, people did not know they could call and then have someone to come into their home and assess what they're doing for free. And then that could help decrease their rate on their utility bill, what they're being charged because of making those improvements. Doesn't matter if you're a renter or not, because if you can teach me something that's going to be a $5 improvement that I can make, but that's going to save me hundreds of dollars throughout the year, I want that information. So I think that we can do a better job as a city making sure we get this information out to people. And then I want to make sure that we continue to look at our transportation, because I've been asked, not just by citizens who ride the bus, but sometimes the workers, our city workers, because the bus runs at a certain time. I've had people say, well, I have to walk to work. I can ride the bus home, but I have to walk to work. And imagine what it's like when it's raining really bad, or when it's snow on the ground, or things of that nature. So I'm encouraging, pushing those things. And we're at the brink right now. We just voted on our transportation center to be built. And we've had a committee to look at our transportation, and we're looking at adding additional stops that would be beneficial, leading people to where the jobs are. But we need to make sure we continue, and I want to continue to push that. And I think within 2 years, having those things such as transportation improved to a degree, there's going to be continued improvement needed. I think looking at offering different things to our youth and other people of the citizenry when it comes to like expungement and different things of that area, and also being able to utilize the CRC program at Pitt Community College, which takes those who may have had an unfortunate situation and they can still go through that. It's a career readiness certificate that they get. Then they can still be positioned or put into a company where they're willing to work with them, even if they had that record, if they go through those type programs. I think that we can put that information out there, and it doesn't have to take 18 years in order to do. And then I also think that we can continue to improve the stats of dealing with crime. That's going to be on a continuous basis. And I want to do all that I can and learn as much information as I can. I am participating in the conference coming up in November, National League of Cities. And as I brought something back last year, maybe I can bring something back this year, because when I go, I take a lot of notes, and then I look at what we're doing. And sometimes we learn when we go outside of where we are, and we look at it from a different lens, because we have some people who are dealing with what we've dealt with, and we can learn from their mistakes. We don't have to repeat the same thing in order for us to improve.
Okay. I think there's a perception out there that you tend to vote with the same people on the council a lot.
I've heard that.
Yeah, you mentioned the transportation. What do you call it? The new transportation station.
The GTAC.
Right. And I noticed the vote was a little different that time, the alignment, I guess, of the vote. Can you talk about how you decide how you're voting on an issue?
I can. I don't think of any vote that I give as an alignment, because I don't at any time tell anybody, whether it's my peers on the council, whether it's a concerned citizen who contacted me, how I'm going to vote. Now, I am contacted often, and they say, I would like for you to vote this way. This is how I feel. This is why I feel that way. I'll often ask, please send me that email. I would like that additional information. But I do my research, such as getting on the bus, going out to walk in different areas. I do my research. I talk to people. And then when I come back to the council, I wait and I listen to the feedback that's given on the council. And then I make my decision. Now, if I'm making the same decision as the peer beside me or my other peers, then people call that aligning. I don't call that aligning. I call that making a vote based on being informed. And that's what I do. So when we looked at the GTAC, we had, I think it was 5-1 on that vote. 5 of us voted the same and won. So if people look at that and say, oh my gosh, they all voted alike, I mean, that's going to be on every vote. Somebody's going to vote alike, somebody's going to vote differently. So I don't like to think of it as a pact. But sometimes when you have people with like minds, and people are willing to collaborate and communicate openly and willing to work together, then it's easier to be able to make some of those decisions. And I think that it would be wonderful if we all agreed on every single thing. But if that happened, would we even have a need for a council?
Exactly.
No. So I think either way you look at it, someone is going to look at it and say you're aligning with one person. I don't care who it is, someone's going to say that. That's the part about being in government. That's when I often tell people when they ask me about being on the council, how is it? I said, it's not as easy as you think. Because if I do it this way, you're going to have someone who's unhappy. And if I do it that way, you're going to have someone who's unhappy. So when I look at being elected into a position, I'm looking at people sharing information with me, but also expecting me to gather as much information as possible in order to make the best decision. And so that's what I try to do.
Okay. I know this time last term you were running unopposed.
I was.
This year you do have competition.
I do.
What are your feelings on that?
I think it's a great thing. I think everybody deserves to have a choice. This is a democracy. So having a choice is a wonderful thing, because I don't like it when I don't have a choice. I mean, I know how I feel sometimes when I don't have a choice, but to have a choice is a great thing. And then to have more people interested in running and making the city better, I think that's excellent. I wish we had more of that on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be that, people are just running on the polls all the time, because it also pushes you, because if you are really doing what you need to do, if you're really listening to the citizens, if you're really making sure you do your research, then you're going to find out from the citizens if they like what you're doing, if they want to continue to support you by getting your vote. If they choose not to, then they want someone different, then you need to make sure you encourage and support those other people. So I think it's wonderful. I don't have anything negative to say about it, and I continue to encourage other people. If you're interested, please run. Get out there, find out what's going on, come to the city council meetings. If you can't come, listen to the city council meetings. Become a part of different committees so you can find out what happens before it even gets to the city council. Find out what's going on, because when we just sit and listen to one side, or just get our information from one side, that information will be one-sided. Because you have some people who only think one way, you have some people who only think another way. Well, my job is to listen to people who think both of those ways and to put everything together. So I encourage people to do that if they're interested in running for city government. It's not easy.
Right.
So, and then you also have to develop some thick skin that we all know. But I encourage it, so I think it's nothing negative about it.
Okay. And last question, what is your campaign slogan this year?
Well, my campaign slogan is focused on solutions.
Okay.
And I chose that because we have many, many, many problems. If you ask people to give you something positive that they think is going well and to give you something negative, the negatives oftentimes outweigh the positive, and we know that. I would rather let's look at what we can do to make that glass, if we want to look at it half full versus half empty. So when you come, you're going to come with your issues and problems, but let's not just come with the problems. Let's come and look at what type of solutions can we have. What can you offer as suggestions? Because many times the suggestions don't come just from us on the council. The suggestions come from our constituents, because they may experience some of these things that we talk about. Maybe they've dealt with it before in the past. Maybe they live in a different city and found out this is how it's been dealt with. That's why we have so many researches, and that's been done in different cities, and then they bring that back and say this is what's done in that city and this city, and this is how it's been effective or non-effective. Looking for those solutions. I think if we look for those solutions instead of focusing on the problems, then we're probably going to be a better city. And I encourage not just me, but everybody on the council and everybody in the city, let's come together as a city and let's focus on the solutions.
Great. Well, thank you, Kandie, for being with us today on GPAT Meet the Candidates and for focusing on the solutions. We thank you.
Thank you.